Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we'll be starting the study of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So today we'll be covering setting the scene regarding the path as how Lord spoke Bhagavad Gita and why he spoke Bhagavad Gita, and when he spoke Bhagavad Gita, what was the setting of that particular scene, but at the same time, what happened before they led to this scene. So these are some important aspects. And as we all understand, Lord Vasudeva appeared in this world to deliver the burden of the earth. So this is in the 10th canto, the very first chapter, where Bhumi, the presiding deity of earth, she begged for deliverance of, from the burden of the demons, the impious people who had occupied the earth and were causing havoc. So that was the reason Lord appeared. And as we understand in Mahabharata, how he delivered that burden and lightened the burden of the earth, and also in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll be studying. We understand that Gita Jayanti is on 25th of December, which also happens to be Christmas Day in the Western world. So we'll be also, reciting, so it becomes twice as much more fun on that day, because all around the world people will be worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, and engaging in all kind of pious activities. And of topmost of all is Sankirtan Yajna, the sacrifice for the current age. It simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. Please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. For every scripture, there are designated invocation prayers. So in Bhagavad Gita, the invocation prayers are given in the introduction sections. So we will be reciting. So please recite together with me the invocation prayers for Bhagavad Gita, which is in the introduction section. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahgana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vichaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapte Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today we are starting Bhagavad Gita, and the coverage is focused on setting the scene. Sometimes people refer to it as that the die is cast, or time is here, and so many other titles have been given by various commentators on Bhagavad Gita. Yet, Bhagavad Gita as it is. Why is Bhagavad Gita called as it is? Please write in the comments line if you understand why Bhagavad Gita is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is Srila Prabhupada's translation in English. And it is not called as it is so that you keep it as it is on the shelf and don't open it. It is meant to be read. Yes, even the presence in a house is very auspicious. It brings all kind of good fortune. Yet the greatest fortune comes when we open it up and study it. And not just read it, but because reading, you read, you forget. Yet at the same time, when you study it, the intention is to understand the application of Bhagavad Gita in our life and to lead a life based on the principles highlighted in Bhagavad Gita, which simply starts, as we saw in the prayers, in the invocation prayers, is by taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and paying respects to the spiritual master, and then paying respects to all the Vaishnavas, then Lord Chaitanya and his associates, followed by Lord Krishna and Mother Radha. And the prayer is to please engage us in your service, in your divine service. So it is a privilege to be able to engage in devotional service. Bhagavad Gita has 12 chapters, and it appears, it's also known as Gita Upanishad. Gita Upanishad is one of the Upanishads, main Upanishads, and it originally occurred as part of Mahabharata Puran. So Mahabharata is one of the Puranas, Rāma and Mahabharata and so forth. And these 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they appear in Bhishma Parva section of Mahabharata from chapter 23 to 40. So those are the specific chapters in the epic Mahabharata that it appears. Now, Lord Krishna, he spoke Bhagavad Gita to his friend and dear devotee Arjun. And that happened around 5,156 years back in 3135 BC, before Christ. So there is no zero in the yearly calendar. 1 AD was the year where Christ was born, and 1 BC was the year before. So there is no zero. So that's why it is calculated to be 3135 BC, before Christ. And Bhagavad Gita literally means song of the God. So this is song of Bhagavan, Lord Shri Krishna, the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. And we devotee, take these words very seriously, because we understand that Lord's instructions are not different from Him. So when they are coming from Him, they are actually for our benefit, for the benefit of the humanity. And even Sripad Shankaracharya, he glorifies Bhagavad Gita as part of Gita Mahatmya. Sometimes we refer to as there is also Gita Mahatmya scripture where each chapter has been glorified. So given the time, we'll also cover that along with each of the chapters, the glories that comes. Yet at the same time, in the conclusion, Sripad Shankaracharya, he glorifies Bhagavad Gita. He is saying, Ekam Shastram Devaki Putram Gitam Eka Devo Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantras Tasya Namani Yani Karmanya Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. So, there is no need for many scriptures. There is only one scripture is sufficient for God realization, and that is Bhagavad Gita, which is spoken by none other than Devaki Putram, Lord Shri Krishna. And we see Lord Krishna, he is appearing as Partha Sathi, charioteer of Arjuna. And there is no need to worship many personalities. We just need to worship one personality, right? Devanam Achyuto Yatha. So Lord Krishna is the topmost worshipable deity. So we just need to worship Lord Shri Krishna. And worship means that we serve Lord Shri Krishna with attention, with humility, with intimacy, with our intelligence, engaging our mind, body and words to please Him as He desires. And with integrity and, constantly meditating on. Sometimes, people, when they become familiar, they start criticizing, but the intimacy should be in the mood of surrender. So that this familiarity breeds contempt aspect does not come in our life. And that the only mantra is His holy names. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And only one duty, devotional service. Engagement in devotional service is the only one duty unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. So, Dharma sanishtitaha pumsam vishvakshena katha suyaha na utpadyate yadi ratim shram eva hi kevalam. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the occupational duty, dharma, has been identified as occupational duty. Dharma, literally meaning is one that sustains. The duty or the activity that sustains one. So, the occupational duties that we engage in are meant to sustain us. That's why Srila Prabhupada, when he translated dharma not as a religion, because religion is based on faith, and when the faith changes, people can change religion. However, to sustain oneself, one occupational duties, the prescribed duties, and especially of the soul, the Sanatan Dharma. Right? That is Jivera Swaruphoya Krishna Nityadas. We are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. That cannot be changed. And we have to follow on those lines. So any occupational duty that a person engages in, if it does not arise in him or her attraction towards Lord Shri Krishna, then it is just useless labor. Shram eva hi kevalam. So even Sripad Shankaracharya is glorifying Mahabharata. So this is a great epic. Maha is like great, and Bharat is, the epic about starting from in the dynasty of Bharat Maharaj. And one should take shelter, of course. Srila Prabhupada in his purpose as well as in introduction itself identifies that one should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and study it in the association of devotees. And hearing, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and describing are two main characteristics which benefit us. And of course, when we engage in these are two powerful processes of devotional service that enable all of the processes to quickly awaken in us, and we get engaged in those processes as well. So the first step is to humbly hear. And Srila Prabhupada said that when a reader is reading Bhagavad Gita, one of the qualifications is that you have to start with this understanding that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that Arjuna is his devotee. When you start with this, you become a qualified listener or audience or hearer to be able to accept Bhagavad Gita as it is and understand the purports, the transcendental ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada as he intended them to be. Now, in setting up the scene, we hear the word Bharat. So Bharat comes from Bharat, King Bharat. And sometimes people get confused because we know three Bharats, right? First one is the younger brother of Lord Ramchandra, son of Kekai. So that is in Ramayana. He appears in Ramayana. It's not this Bharat. Then sometimes people get confused with the second Bharat, the son of Rishabdev, who was the emperor of the world, and then he renounced everything, and then when he was engaging in devotional service in the forest in his hut, at that time he got attracted to a deer, which caused him to fall down at the last moment of his life. He meditated on the deer because he had become affectionate to that deer, and so he took birth as deer and so forth. So it is not that Bharat. He was later on, after the life of deer, he remembered by the mercy of the Lordship his past life as the emperor of the world, Bharat Maharaj. And so in his next life, after the deer life, he was born as Jad Bharat. So we have elaborately described this in Srimad Bhagavatam classes. And how Jad Bharat gave instructions to King Rahuguna, and at the end attained liberation, went back home, back to Godhead. So it is the third Bharat, the son of Dushmanta and Shakuntala. Shakuntala, the daughter of sage Vishwamitra and Menaka. So this third Bharat, as we understand, when afterwards he accepted, he was accepted by his father as the son. So we all understand that this Bharat, on which the glorification of Mahabharat name is coming from, and whose lineage Arjuna and all the Pandavas and even Vasudeva, father of Lord Vasudeva Kṛṣṇa, also appears, is known for his valor. He is known for many of his qualities, but there are like three qualities that really shine out. For his tolerance, that's another aspect. He was very tolerant, and he was always very humble from his mood, even though he was the emperor of the world, and he was very chivalrous, he was very powerful. To give an example, when Shakuntala, she had him as a son, he was just a baby, as a toddler, and Dushmanta had forgotten about her because of the curse of the sage. That Shakuntala, when she was meditating in his thoughts, she was cursed that whoever thoughts you are meditating on, that person will forget about you. So Dushmanta forgot about Shakuntala, and then when her friends, they told the sage that she is actually meditating, she just got married, and she's thinking of her husband, so she was completely absorbed in those thoughts, and that's why she could not properly receive the sage. So this is not her fault. So at that time, sage became compassionate. He said, okay, if he sees something that he had given her, which he had given her a ring, then he would remember. And we all know the story that unless King Dushman sees that ring, which is later on retrieved from the stomach of a fish, he does not remember. So Bharat was her son as a toddler, and he would go out to the jungle and he would pick up as a toy. So children, they like to play as toy, right? Toys, play with toys. And what are the interesting toys some kids today ask for? And of course, December 25th happens to be Christmas days, and somehow people forgot that that was the day there was a great star seen on the east, and the Son of God,
son of Christ, Jesus, he took birth. They are more attracted to Santa's stories, and every parent is going out to find the best toy. But this kid, Bharat Maharaj, he would go out in the jungle, and as a toy he would catch lions, tigers, panthers, and he would play with them as his toys. Sometimes, once the sages were observing, and they were surprised that Bharat Maharaj was just simply opening the mouth of a lion and counting his teeth. How many teeth does it have, and what kind of teeth does it have? And they were surprised that he was so powerful even as a toddler, as a 5-6-year-old child. So after his father, when he succeeded, became the king, he conquered all areas, and yet at the same time, how is he tolerant is shown that he had 3 wives, but all of them, these 3 wives were so devoted to him, and sometimes, miseries, they appear in various forms. So the adhyatmic, the one that's caused by mind, is the most difficult to overcome. And to simply overcome that misery is by taking to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So these 3 wives, every time they had a son, child born, they would see the child, and since the child did not resemble the king, they would kill their own child. Even though they were all his children, those wives of Bharat Maharaj, they would think that our husband would think that we are unchaste because the child does not resemble him. So Bharat Maharaj, he raised to the Brahmanas his concern, and finally a great sacrifice was done where Bharatwaj again. So he received a son from the demigods, which became a lineage. So in the very beginning itself of Bharat, we understand it is not the seminal descendants that are of importance. It is the qualities of the ones. Which also reminds me of a very wonderful incident where Srila Prabhupada, he was not just a great devotee, he is a great acharya, and he followed this principle. When his son, he sued, he created he made a court case in Bombay and tried to say that everything that belongs in ISKCON is actually property that should be passed on to him. At that time, Srila Prabhupada, not hiring a lawyer, presented the case himself and proved that actually there are seminal sons and there are disciples who are also considered as sons and daughters. And so he is passing on definitely to his descendants, which happens to be his disciples, as members of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Sometimes we also see people making a mistake of saying it is International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Well, that changes the whole meaning. That means that there is only Krishna Consciousness in this society and nowhere else, which is not true, because we understand that there are 4 sampradayas: Rudra Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya, Shi Sampradaya, and Kumar Sampradaya. And ISKCON is in the lineage of Brahma Sampradaya. Rudra Sampradaya is from Lord Shiva, coming from Lord Shiva, and in the southern part of India it is highly prevalent. Then Shi Sampradaya is coming from Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi Devi. So that also is very much prevalent and very effective in the southern part as well as part of the western India. And then comes Kumar Sampradaya, coming from the 4 Kumaras, the sons of Lord Brahma. And then Brahma Sampradaya is coming from Lord Brahma, who passed it on to Devashi Narad, and Lord Brahma received. So all these sampradayas, actually the origin is Sarva Karan Karanam, Lord Shri Krishna. So based on his instructions, based on his mercy, all these sampradayas are coming. And so, Lord Brahma passed it on to Devashi Narad, Devashi passed it on to Srila Kṛṣṇa, Dvaipanya Vyastev, and his reference comes in setting of the scene as well. And yes. So now we understand that Bharat Maharaj, he was highly tolerant, very humble, accepting whatever comes his way. And we also understand the importance is not of seminal lineage, but also of acceptance of the great qualities and characteristics of personalities to be able to pass on the dharohar, the properties on. And everything should be used in the service of Lord Shri Krishna. And that is the major focus, because Arjun in Bhagavad Gita gets bewildered. But before we go over to that point, setting of the scene also includes as how, in the lineage, there was Shantanu, one king. So Shantanu, he had a son, Jiva Tattva, from Mother Ganges, personified Ganges, river Ganges, personified. And she was actually trying to deliver the Vasus, but the eighth Vasu was somehow not drowned, and Shantanu asked her to leave, not deliver that baby. But she delivered the baby, but not merge it in the waters. By he did not know, and there was a condition that if he'll ask a question, she will leave him. So she left him with Devadatta, and Devadatta was sent, and he received education. He received shiksha, knowledge, from great personalities like Brihaspati, the spiritual masters of the demigods, by Parshurama and so forth. And Shantanu, once he saw a lady, Satyavati, who was rowing the boat, crossing, helping people cross the river, and she was daughter of Dashraj, one of a poor boatman. So also sometimes referred to as fisherman. So he got attracted, and Satyavati actually had received a boon from Parashar Muni that she would be Ajivan Kanya, so she will be forever virgin. On top of that, her body will have amazing fragrance, which will be which could be perceived even miles from where she is located. So because of the boons, means again, Shantanu was first attracted by the fragrance, then by her beauty, and he expressed to marry her. However, her father, the fisherman Dashraj and the boatman Dashraj, he was very poor, and he placed a very tough condition in front of Shantanu, saying that, well, if you marry my daughter and she has a son, you already have a son, Devadatta, and he is very powerful. He is Devrata is very highly educated, very intelligent. He is also very chivalrous because he is a disciple of Parshuram. Imagine a Kshatriya. Parshuram would not accept any Kshatriyas, but he accepted Devavrata to be his disciple. There is a beautiful story about that also, as how Devavrata was accepted by Parshuram. Initially he was disciple of Brihaspati. So it is not that you can have many spiritual masters. These are all instructing spiritual masters. You can have many instructing spiritual masters, however, you can only have one Diksha Guru, initiating spiritual master. In case of Devavrata, it was Brihaspati who was his initiating spiritual master. So his great qualities of tolerance and endurance comes because of the instructions he received from Brihaspati, and then his chivalrous characteristics are reflection of the teachings of Lord Parshuram. So when Shantanu heard this, he did not like it, so he returned back, but he became very morose. And at that time, the charioteer of Shantanu, he revealed this to Devavrata, as how Shantanu, his father of Devavrata, is feeling so sad because of Dashraj, who has placed this condition that son of Satyavati and Shantanu, if they are married, would not become the king. And so at that time, Devavrata himself went to Dashraj's home and took this great vow. And that's why it's like a Bhishma. It's a very difficult vow. He says that not just that I would not take the throne, and I would ensure that her sons and descendants, they occupy the throne. Rather, I would always be serving them. I will always protect them. I will never marry in my life. So I would not have, if I will not marry, then there is no possibility of having a progeny, having a child. And so there is no need to fear even in the future. And because of that amazing vow he had taken, he is glorified as Bhishma Dev. And of course, when Shantanu and Satyavati, they were married. At that time, Shantanu, when he came to know that Devavrata has taken this amazing Bhishma vow, so he coronated him, he called him, gave him the title Bhishma, and also gave him a boon of Ichha Mrityu, that he would die by his own desire. He would not die by another's hand, by natural causes, only when he wants to die. So again, these are amazing potencies, the blessings people could receive because of their sincere acts. So here his father was very happy and he gave him this blessing. And we normally see that when we pay obeisances to our parents, they normally bless us by saying Jug Jug Jiyo, live for many, many millenniums, which is amazing. So we should be always respectful. This is also austerity of mind, to be respectful to the elders, be respectful to and serve the parents, to serve the spiritual masters, to serve the brahmanas. And this is austerity of the body. So, and to always stay clean, always stay pious. And mind, body and words all should be kept austere. Cleanliness is next to godliness, as Srila Prabhupada teaches us again and again. And he shows us by his own life, by his own example. So at that time, when Satyavati was married, she had 2 sons. And yes, Hare Krishna. So Vichitravirya was the younger one, and Chitrangada, the eldest son, once he was fighting with Gandharvas, and they killed him, defeated him and killed him, and he did not have any son. So at that time, Bhishma Dev, he established Vichitravirya. Vichitravirya is actually a title. He was an amazing warrior. And to glorify further, and Vichitravirya was just a boy. He had not yet reached his, manhood fully. So as a boy, he was placed on the throne. And sometimes people, they are amazed that, okay, if a boy is on the throne, then how is the kingdom being run? So Bhishma Dev, he ran on behalf of Vichitravirya, and he also, won over the 3 princesses to marry to Vichitravirya, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. However, Amba was already in love with another person. So when she revealed, at that time Bhishma Dev brought her to that king, and at that time, Amba's lover, she refused to marry because she had been abducted from her Swayamvar by Bhishma Dev. So Amba said, he is not accepting me, so you should accept me. And Bhishma Dev said, I cannot accept because I have taken this vow. So Amba at that time became very angry and she went into meditation, and we all know how she becomes the cause of the death of Bhishma Dev. Yet at the same time, Bhishma Dev also has Ichha Mrityu, so he will only die when he desires, when he wishes to leave his body, then only he would leave his body. So Amba and Ambalika were the 2 queens of Vichitravirya, and Vichitravirya was very attracted to these 2 queens. However, in due course of time, he became sick, and he became terminally sick. He stayed sick for like 7 years, and afterwards he left his body. He did not have any son or daughter, no child. So again, there was discussion. Satyavati at that time revealed that she actually had a son before her marriage with Shantanu, and that was with Parashar Muni. So Parashar Muni and her, they had a son. This son is none other than Shri Kṛṣṇa Dvaipanya Vyasadeva. Dvaipanya comes from Dweep, one who is born on an island, Dvaipanya. So one who is born on an island is called Dvaipanya, and he is very dark in color. And he's very, he's not very attractive, very dark in color. That's why Kṛṣṇa, one of the meaning is black, so very dark. So he's also her son. She gave birth to him. So when she reveals this to Bhishma Dev, he says that based on Nirogya ceremony, Nirogya process, where the brother can, be the cause of delivering sons, and they will be considered sons of the original brother, through the wives of his brother. So that's how, when Vyasadeva was called in and he received this instruction from his mother, Satyavati that he has to enable the progeny so that the dynasty can continue. At that time, from Amba, Dhritarashtra was born, and because Amba had closed her eyes, Dhritarashtra was born as blind, and Vyasadeva revealed it right afterwards. Then Ambika, Dhritarashtra was born. Amba was the upset one who went on meditation. She was upset with Bhishma Dev. And Ambalika, from her was born Pandu. And when Amba was asked again by Satyavati to go and see Vyasadeva, she sent her maidservant, and this maidservant, was very reverential towards Vyasadeva. And from her, Vidur, Mahatma Vidur was born. So these three sons were there. Dhritarashtra was blind, so he was not qualified. So at that time, Pandu was made the king. He was made he was coronated as king. Pandu had two wives, Kunti and Madari. Kunti is also known as Pritha because of her. So again, in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in those classes, we have covered that extensively. So from Pandu, with Kunti and Pritha, means he was ruling very nicely. However, there was an incident where he was cursed. He happened to have visited the sage's ashram, and he was not knowing that sage with his wife, they were in the jungle in the form of deer, and he went on arcade. Kshatriyas, they go out in the forest to practice their skills so that they can protect the citizens and be able to fight well in battles and wars and so forth. And unknowingly, when he kills the deer, it just so happened that it was the sage and his wife. So the sage says, you will not get the sin of killing a Brahman. However, you will have this situation that when you will be embracing your wife, you will face death. And Pandu, when he came to know of this, he immediately left the kingdom with his two wives. He went and started living in an ashram. At that time, Queen Kunti, his wife, she revealed to him that actually she had received a boon from Durvasa Muni that she can invoke mercy of any of the demigods. So the mantra she had received. When she revealed this to Pandu, Pandu became very, happy, hearing that yes, there can be progeny. He cannot be with his wives. So at that time, Queen Kunti, on his request and agreement, she invoked Dharmraj, and she had the son Yudhishthir. Then after a year, Pandu asked her to get another one, and this time because Dharmraj is very righteous, but we also want a very chivalrous son. So she invoked she chanted the mantra, meditating on Vayudev, who's very powerful. So she got son Bhim as her son, and then afterwards Indra was invoked, and from him she received Arjun as her son. Very pious sons. Now Madari, she could not approach Kunti. She approached her husband Pandu, saying that Kunti has 3 sons. She doesn't have any, but she doesn't feel comfortable because co-wives are like in competition with each other. She did not know how to approach. And Pandu realized, he said, actually I was thinking of approaching you, but I did not know how you would take it. So that's why I did not say anything. Now that I know that you also desire son, I'll talk to Kunti. He goes and talks to Kunti and requests her that if she can help Madari. So Madari had requested that if Kunti can give me the mantra, I can use it. Kunti, thinking that if she gives Madari mantra, she would invoke many times, many demigods, she can have many sons. So she said, you meditate, I will recite the mantra. So Madari at that time, realizing that Kunti would only recite this mantra once and would not give her another chance, she meditated on the twin brothers, Ashwini Kumaras, who were the great surgeons and very beautiful and very magnanimous looking personalities. So in that case, Queen Kunti, when she recited the mantra, Madari got 2 sons, Nakul and Sahadev, very pious, very humble and very disciplined sons. And so these 5 brothers were called Pandavas. Now we also understand these are not seminal sons of Pandu, yet at the same time, with his permission, with the divine arrangement, they are there. And after Yudhishthira was born, Gandhari, who was wife of Dhritarashtra, she became upset because she was expecting to have a baby. Yet at the same time, as we know that, she struck her stomach and a dead piece of meat was born of her, which was used by the sages to split into different vessels and were grown as babies. So these were 100 test tube babies, as we can understand, as per today's terms, as we say in this world. And they were the Kauravas. And the eldest one was Duryodhan, and the second one was Dushasan. And Dushasan was as faithful and loving to Duryodhan as Lakshmana was loving Lord Ramchandra. So even though Duryodhan was bad in character, Dushasan just wanted to please his son. Today, if we have 100 brothers, the second one was just want to take away the position of the first one. That is a common, tendency. But here, even there, in the demoniac side, we see some Sanskriti, some reflection of great lineage. And so Duryodhan always wanted to kill Pandavas because they were the rightful heirs. So there were many attempts were made on the life of Queen Kunti and the 5 Pandavas. Pandu, when he embraced Madhuri once when she was bathing, at that time, he died. And so she took the position of Sati with Pandu. She, entered the fire while Kunti was put in charge of Nakul and Sahadev. And she took care of Nakul and Sahadev just like her own sons, Yudhishthir, Bhima and Arjun. So here, this great, Cold War, as we see in this today's time, the Cold War was going on between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And Pandavas were always saved by the mercy of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, who was also their maternal cousin, as well as their uncle Vidur, Mahatma Vidur. So they were again escaping, and they actually got Indraprastha, which became a great magnanimous, kingdom. And Duryodhana became very envious. So he tricked them after he was insulted by Draupadi. We also covered that in the 9th canto. Duryodhana, he tricked them to come for a game of dice, and this was a rigged game where he usurped all their kingdom and even tried to insult Draupadi. Yet at the same time, Lord Kṛṣṇa again came to her rescue, and at that time it was decided that Pandavas, they will be exiled for 12 years and then 1 year of incognito living. And if they are recognized during this Agyatvas, incognito year of incognito life, then they would have to again go back to 12 years and then 1 year of incognito. So the cycle could continue. And so they were sent away. Duryodhana was enjoying after the 13 years were over, and Pandavas came back asking for the kingdom. At that time, Duryodhana refused. So Pandavas said, okay, just give us 5 villages. And Nakul, he was a very strategically oriented person. So he identified 5 villages so strategically situated that Duryodhana, when he looked at it, he got upset. That these are very strategic positions. If Pandavas are, because they are administrator, that's their nature, Kshatriya nature. If they rule this, before you know it, they would be having great kingdom again of their own. All 5 brothers, they will be great kings. So he said he would not give in a land enough for the Pandavas to even put a, place a pin in, to put a, dig a pin in. Not even that much land. So of course, battle was inevitable. Kurukshetra was identified as the battlefield. This battlefield had a different condition than the previous wars and battles, where it was decided that there were some conditions being placed, and we know that this battle that ran for 18 days, all these conditions were violated, right? That's why people came up with this. There is no rule in or condition in war and love, right? Something like that. Yeah, love and war. So here, it is in this battlefield that this narration happens. However, the complete Bhagavad Gita is being narrated by Sanjay to Dhritarashtra. And how is that possible? Because they are sitting in a palace, they are not on the battlefield. How could Sanjay saw every single action that happened on the battlefield. This is because of the mercy of Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva, he visited Dhritarashtra and he wanted to give him divine eyes so that he could see himself this battle between Kauravas and the Pandavas. And various kings had joined either side of the parties. Why? Because in Kurukshetra, which is the religious grounds of the Kurus, that's what it means, where the great sacrifices were being performed by various Kuru kings. There was a boon by Indra that whoever would die on that ground, whoever will leave their body on that ground, will attain heavenly planets. So the kings, they were very desirous to engage in this great battle. That's why it's like Mahabharata, because of this great battle. Is where the focus was that if they die on the battlefield, then they will attain heavenly planets, and if they live, then they get heavenly riches on this planet itself. So they would have it's a win-win scenario, simply stated. Now with this mindset, the two parties were there. 11 Akshahanis on Kaurava's side, 7 Akshahanis on Pandava's side, and they're ready for the war. When Shri Krishna Dvaipana Vyasadeva, he wants to give this boon. Dhritarashtra says, I have been born blind, right? I'm blind from birth. What benefit would I receive? So it's better that you give it to my secretary, to Sanjay. So Sanjay is now accepted as the disciple of Vyasadeva, and he receives these divine eyes. And sitting just in the palace, Sanjay is able to see all the incidents that are happening on the battlefield, and is able to recite. So there is a beautiful picture depicting as how Sanjay is reciting. So Sanjay is able to see the complete, all the activities at the battlefield at Kurukshetra, and he is describing it. Yet at the same time, Bhagavad Gita starts with an inquiry, and the inquiry is coming from Dhritarashtra. So this is where the chapter 1 starts in Bhagavad Gita, and there are 18 chapters. First 6 chapters refer to Karma Yoga. The last 6 chapters refer to Jnana Yoga, and the middle 6 chapters, 7 through 12, they refer to Bhakti Yoga. So it is nicely sandwiched in the middle of Bhagavad Gita. So this is where the setting of the scene is, and the two armies are gathered, and we will be picking it up in the next class. Hare Krishna. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anand Koti Vaishnava Vind ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.